Before Chris Evans would go on to be known as Captain America and be in one of the most successful franchises in Marvel history, in television and movie history, he was a different Marvel character. At one point, Chris Evans played the character of Johnny Storm, and he did a pretty damn good job. I would argue that he was simply better at capturing the essence of Johnny Storm than he was at capturing Captain America, and I think Chris Evans' Captain America was amazing. But in general, I feel his role in the Fantastic Four movies is underappreciated, much as these movies are underappreciated. They're far from perfect, but they're definitely not terrible. So now let's get into a little bit of analysis on Johnny Storm. I'll be honest with you guys, there's not a whole lot to talk about with his character, but there are a few things the movies did well with him and I wish they would have fleshed out more. From the first time that we see Johnny, he is pretty much a self-absorbed womanizer who kind of just only cares about making himself look good and just having fun living his life. But even then, there are things that Johnny does truly care about. He does really care about his friends, even if he doesn't show it very often. I like to imagine that the front that Johnny puts up as this happy-go-lucky and very carefree person is just what I said, it's a front. He really does care for these people. He cares for Ben Grimm. He cares for the Fantastic Four, even if he shows it in a very odd manner.
Unfortunately, the doctors just couldn't do anything to fix your face.
Johnny pretty much shows his love through excessive teasing and a lot of just middle school boy friendship type mannerisms. It's the best I can describe the way in which Johnny likes to treat people. Johnny also has a complete and utter disregard and lack for any sort of authority. Johnny is very much anti-authority. He doesn't care for it in the slightest. We see this when he's being asked to quarantine, as there are potential dangers with the radiation he picked up in space, that it may have affected his biochemistry. But Johnny didn't really care and instead said, I want to go snowboarding. And in the process, he discovers his powers as the Human Torch, and even gets to do a little bit of flying. And for Johnny, this is extremely exciting. For him, this is amazing. The thought of having powers is awesome to Johnny, and he doesn't really think about any sort of repercussions that might come with having these powers. But even still, Johnny is far more than what he wants to present on the surface. He acts like he loves having these powers because they make him look cool and they're great as a media tools. He gets popular over it. But we see Johnny is no stranger to being a hero at his core. The first thing the dude does when he sees a kid in danger is he jumps into the fray to try and save them, not even knowing if his powers will fully protect the kid or himself. But that's just who Johnny is, even though he might try to put up a front as though he's not. But that definitely doesn't stop him from taking the spotlight and wanting to be popular in the process.
What he means is every team needs a mascot. Johnny, a new day is dawning. The day of the Fantastic Four.
Now, for this first movie, Johnny doesn't get a whole lot to do. But for what he does get, I think he does really well. And as well, I think his relationship with Ben Grimm and, of course, Chris Evans' ability to play the character of Johnny is very well done. The way in which he plays off of Michael Chiklis is just amazing. I think Chris Evans provides a level of depth to the character of Johnny that simply just wasn't written in the script. I think his performance very much elevated the character, especially in this first movie, where Johnny could really come off as an asshole, or Johnny could truly come off as just being a one-note misogynist almost. But it's through Chris Evans' ability to act as the character, and I think as well his understanding and just genuine joy for playing Johnny Storm, that really shines through in his performance. Now, touching more on Johnny as a character, he is seen thoroughly and constantly picking and teasing at Ben Grimm for his appearance and for his power set, even though he knows that it is a serious point of contention for Ben and that it really does upset him. But to Johnny, this is his way of showing kind of his affection and genuine care for him, even if he does go on national television and basically insult the dude.
What is that? What do you call that thing?
That's it. The thing.
Johnny often acts without thinking, and that's very, very evident throughout this first movie especially. A lot of the things he does and says, he doesn't really think about the consequences for the other members of the Fantastic Four. When he goes on live television and gives them all nicknames and calls Ben Grimm the Thing, that sticks for Ben in the public eye. Even if Johnny might think it's a harmless joke, he doesn't really realize how that might affect Ben, and he just kind of doesn't care at the same time. Johnny is, for all intents and purposes, sometimes just a general asshole in this first movie. He gets action figures made of each one of the Fantastic Four, looking to profit off of their name and likenesses, and once again just finds another way to annoy Ben. And even when he's confronted by his own sister, Johnny just kind of brushes her off and is annoyed in his own right.
Do you even hear yourself? Who do you think you are?
Why is everyone on my ass? If you guys are jealous, that's fine. I didn't expect it to come from you, though.
Johnny is constantly pushing those around him away and away. He keeps everyone at arm's length, and that's kind of his coping mechanism. He doesn't want anybody to get too close to him. Now, I believe the reason Johnny really wants to keep people at arm's length is because when he was young, he lost his mother to a car accident, something that is tragic and unfortunate. And to make it even worse, he also lost his father at the same time. His father was a surgeon and tried to save Johnny's mother, only for Johnny's mom to pass away, causing his father to fall deep into addiction. And so I can see where Johnny doesn't want to let anybody get close to him, to potentially let anybody hurt him again, even his own sister. But that doesn't mean that Johnny is heartless, nor does that also mean that Johnny isn't going to be willing to protect the things that he cares for. At the end of the movie, Johnny goes out of his way to come back into the fold and use his powers to help save the day, simply because it means protecting his newfound family, something he seems to care for a lot, especially at the end of this first movie, no matter how much he puts on a front. It really isn't until the second movie that Johnny gets more to do with his own personal character arc and character development, and I think that was a fairly interesting way to look at it. The first movie was far more focused on Ben Grimm and the way in which he was dealing with his powers, and it was also more focused on Sue and Reed. So for the second movie, especially now that Ben seems fairly happy in his own skin and his own shell, I think it was appropriate to spend a bit more time with Johnny, even if I would have wished the first movie did more with him. Johnny is the only member of the Fantastic Four to be single, currently, anyways, and I think that bothers him a little. We constantly see him chasing after multiple different women, we see him get with multiple different women, and of course he does, but it's never anything long term, and I think that really bothers him. As a matter of fact, Ben Grimm's girlfriend, Alicia Masters, who pretty much says to Johnny straight up that he is alone and that he's lonely. Ben has somebody, Reed and Sue have each other, and he has no one. And I think that truly does bother him, even if he doesn't want to admit it. And in the second movie, we also get to see more of his care for his sister. We get to see him going out of his way to be kind to her on her wedding day. We get to see him go out of his way to do things for his siblings. That's because he loves this family that he's found with the Fantastic Four, something I don't think Johnny has had for quite some time. And even when things are not going correct and things aren't going right, he is always the first person to jump into action, even if it means burning up a Dolce suit. So when there is the potential that maybe the Fantastic Four won't be a family forever, and that Reed and Sue are going to leave to go live a normal life, Johnny is extremely hurt by this, and he's also afraid. He doesn't want his family to end anytime soon. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't know where to fit this in the script properly, so we're gonna do it right here. Johnny, in his first meeting with the Silver Surfer, who is the main antagonist for the first half of this second movie, does show up and ends up messing with his biochemistry, making it so that if Johnny touches any of the other members of the Fantastic Four, they will end up swapping powers. Okay, now back to the regularly scheduled script. Johnny is harboring real resentment for Reed and Sue, at least for right now.
Look, we were gonna tell you guys.
When were you gonna tell us? When you moved our stuff out of the Baxter building?
Johnny, this.
And he expresses that in the mission that they are going to go on to try and capture the Silver Surfer. And Johnny makes it very clear, if the Silver Surfer shows up, he's going after him, even though Reed has told Johnny repeatedly not to get anywhere near any of the Fantastic Four members or the Silver Surfer, because a single touch from him could straight up ruin everything, considering that Johnny doesn't know how to use the others' powers and they don't know how to use his properly. And so in the process, Johnny almost causes the deaths of multiple innocent people and also causes the team to lose the Silver Surfer in the process, all because he was going headstrong into the problem. He was trying to be the hero, to prove that the team needs to stick together, but that just doesn't work out for him. And to make things even worse, Reed believes that the end of the world is approaching and that the Silver Surfer is bringing it. And Johnny, he's scared. Johnny's genuinely worried because he doesn't have anyone to spend that time with. Reed and Sue are pissed off at him. Ben has his girlfriend that he can spend time with, and Johnny doesn't have anyone. Anyone except for Ben.
What I meant was that it's just nice to have somebody.
Well, you got me, pal.
And he is almost constantly reminded of that. Throughout this movie, Johnny has been hitting on one of the military soldiers that the Fantastic Four has been working with, and he's struck out at every base, and she just eventually tells him that Johnny will probably end up alone, especially if he continues to go the way in which he's going. And Johnny, I don't know if that's really a wake-up call for him. The movie never really confirms it, because they're too busy trying to jam Galactus and Silver Surfer and a bunch of other stuff into the movie, so the subplot kind of fades to the background, especially for the latter half of this movie, as Johnny, Sue, and Reed all kind of just make up well as they try to get the Silver Surfer out of prison. And Johnny does, at least at the end of the movie, end up doing something pretty cool, which is he has to take on the powers of all four members of the Fantastic Four at once in order to defeat a souped-up Dr. Doom who has the Silver Surfer's board and the power cosmic. Now, there is a risk associated with this, that he might die, but, I mean, come on, they weren't gonna kill Johnny, not at least this early. But in all seriousness, I think Chris Evans did an absolutely wonderful job with the character of Johnny Storm. He captured a level of depth that I just don't think the writing really had in place for the character. And it's also implied that at the end of the movie, Johnny ends up getting with the military woman after being so brave. Again, wish they would have spent more time on Johnny or fleshing out any of his subplots, but you know, that just is kind of how these movies were back in the day and still are to this day. So, you know, not too much to say on that end. Regardless, these movies were fun and very enjoyable, especially for what they were in 2005 and 2007 respectively. I think they could have been handled better, definitely, but I think for what we got, they were pretty damn good. And spoiler alert real quick, I also think it was really great that Chris Evans reprised his role as the Human Torch, as Johnny Storm, in the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. That was super awesome, and it made me really giddy, especially going to watch that movie, because I can remember watching these movies as a kid, and that's partly why I was so inspired to make this video. Regardless, this has been a look back at Chris Evans' other role as a Marvel super. So, flame on, I guess. I just want to take a moment to thank you all for watching once again. I really enjoy doing these kind of like brief side looks at different characters in movies and doing some, more brief character analysis, which really takes me back to the days where I would do these like 10-15 minute videos on the regular. Regardless, thank you all for watching. Once again, just want to say thank you all for watching. And I also want to say, if you like the video, leave a like. It helps out the channel a lot. If you want to sub, it's free and you can always unsubscribe later. If you didn't like the video, please dislike and then comment down below telling me why. That helps me as a creator to make better videos. And finally, I do run a Patreon where you can see all of these videos both early and unedited. If you feel so inclined to join, it's about $1 a month, and I do offer varying tiers, along with a $5 tier and above, who all get shouted out at the end of one of my videos. And it's about time we did that for this one. So shout out to VideoGamer75, shout out to Golden Boy 420, shout out to Donovan Gomez, Dakota Rawson, and MC Bomb 27. You guys are amazing, and hope everybody who watched this has an absolutely fantastic day.